Good Shabbos and good morning. I don't typically title my sermons, but if I was going to, my sermon's a question. Are we more spies like us, or we might be giants? Which is a reference to a band or to a movie. But here's the question. Should we be more like spies, or should we be more like giants in our life? Our Torah portion, Parshat Shlach Lecha, opens in the war room of the Israelite camp, as the Jewish people are preparing to follow God's instruction to enter and conquer the land of Israel. A surveillance mission is concocted, consisting of 12 spies, one from each of the tribes, and they're sent across the border to bring reconnaissance back to the camp. They encounter the beauty of a land flowing with milk and honey, filled with abundant and gigantic fruit. The spies also view heavy fortresses and a race of giants inhabiting the land of Israel. They report back to Moses and to the people. 10 of the 12 spies cast a negative view of the proposed conquest. Quote, "We cannot attack that people, for it is stronger than we. We look like grasshoppers to ourselves, and so we must have looked in their eyes. We look like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we must have looked in their eyes too." Only the 2 spies, Yehoshua, Joshua, and Caleb, advise the people that a potential possible outcome will come. They say, "Let us go up and possess the land. We shall surely overcome." But mass hysteria erupts as the people are filled with fear and dread over the majority negative report of the spies, and the people refuse the conquest of the land of Israel. The Torah reports in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that the spies went up to the land with evil thoughts and they returned with evil thoughts, that before even stepping foot in Israel on that holy mission to scout out the land, 10 of those spies had predetermined that the land would be too difficult to conquer. Their negativity, their lack of faith spread to the entire camp, resulting in the severe punishment of 40 years of wandering, corresponding to their 40 days of spying out the land. But why would the spies say that they looked like grasshoppers to themselves? Rabbinic legends describe the giants that they saw as so immensely tall that the sun only reached up to their ankles. That probably is a bit of hyperbole. Erica Brown, in her book Leadership in the Wilderness, Authority and Anarchy in the Book of Numbers, teaches that this story of the spies is a story which teaches us about perception, what the spies thought they saw. It revealed an inner truth. They saw themselves defeated even before a potential war. It wasn't just a test for them, it was a test about them. And if perception is reality, then reality has the ability to change because we can shift our perception. But could the spies shift their perception? Did they see themselves as giants? Did they see themselves as spies? Did they see themselves simply as grasshoppers? Of course, when we read this parsha, we're reminded that the spies' negative commentary on themselves reflects low self-esteem, a lack of respect for their own capability, lacking self-confidence, perhaps still harboring a slave mentality left over from Egypt. And there's a midrash, a legend, that God's self, challenges the spies in their perception of themselves as grasshoppers, that when the spies said, "We look like grasshoppers be'einenu," in our own eyes, God responds with these words, "This I can overlook, but what about that we look like grasshoppers be'einehem," in their eyes? "Here I am angry," God says. "Did you know how I made you look in the giant's eyes? Who told you that you didn't look like angels when they looked and saw you?" Our rabbis teach that the opportunity was right there to improve their lives. They could have entered the promised land immediately, beginning a new chapter in their lives, and not have to wander for 40 years aimlessly. However, the spies limited themselves. They made the possible impossible. And how often do we do that to ourselves? We see something, or we don't see it. There is something that is possible, but we make it impossible. We cannot perceive attaining it. Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, the Blovitcher Rebbe, says that the Israelites at this point were paralyzed by fear. Not fear about seeing giants in the other land, but fear of success. They liked the desert. They liked the transitory state. They liked that they were literally being spoon-fed from God manna every single day. They were protected and cared for, that God told them where to go every single day. But when they would enter the land, that would mean that they would have to be responsible for themselves, to chart their own path, to work the land and their potential bounty without the guarantee of manna by their door each and every morning. They were afraid to leave the nest, Rabbi Schneerson adds. They would rather die in the wilderness or return to slavery in Egypt. The key word in the spies' words is ephes. If you know what ephes means in Hebrew, it means zero. They saw themselves as nothing, as ephes, as zero, with no worth, with no potential, no growth. They were powerless. As Rabbi Theodore Lewis from the Thoreau Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island, he titles this parsha, "The Grasshopper Complex." He says the Israelites had a grasshopper complex. Joshua and Caleb, the two spies, both believed in God's promise and the power of positive thinking. They were confronted with the choice: do we dwell in the dangers of the land, or do we focus on the bountiful potential results? They remained positive. They were rewarded as the sole members of their generation to settle in the land. The key word for Joshua and Caleb is tovah, good, not ephes. They didn't see themselves as nothing. They saw life as good. They saw the good, the potential, the opportunity, and the growth. They weren't blind to the giants. They said, yes, there are giants there. Obstacles will lay in our path, but we can overcome. We shall overcome. Every single day, each one of us are confronted with the choice. Do we dwell on the negative? Do we make the possible impossible? Or do we reach for the positive? Thinking positively allows us to imagine success, bringing us one step closer to its achievement. Many people call it visioning. With self-confidence and self-respect, we have that power to visualize ourselves not as grasshoppers, but maybe as giants. For seeing ourselves as grasshoppers already envisions defeat. But I want to make a suggestion here, or make a applause. I don't actually think grasshoppers are as bad as they're made out to be. You know, in those superhero movies, there's Spider-Man, there's Ant-Man. Why can't there be Grasshopper Man? I don't know if you've spent a lot of time delving into grasshoppers, but I'll tell you this about them. Grasshoppers have the ability to catapult themselves. They can jump 10 times higher than their height and 50 times longer than their length. That's pretty impressive, don't you think? Maybe we can be like a grasshopper because they leap to higher places than they could even imagine. They jump forward so much. And maybe that can inspire us in this thinking about making the possible possible, not making the possible impossible. By the way, grasshoppers also grow in stages. Grasshoppers, when they are born and they are young, don't have wings. They grow wings over time. They actually can fly later in life. Perhaps grasshoppers can teach us this, that we can grow too. We can have what we call a growth mindset, that we can succeed perhaps in something that wasn't possible at one point, but in time, we can grow, life can grow, and we can achieve greater heights and fly later in life like grasshoppers. Our Torah portion teaches us what we should see and what we should hear. I don't know if you know, grasshoppers' eyes are on their bellies. Maybe it teaches us that what we see, what we perceive, should be a little bit more from our kishkas, from our gut, than necessarily from here. Our Torah portion ends with the very famous line that we recite twice a day, not the line, but the passage about the tzitzit. We sang it this morning. We sing it many days. It's the third paragraph of the Shema, the commandment to wear tzitzit. Erica Brown suggests that the fringes that we wear are meant to remind us of who we truly are, the ties and the connections that bind us, that hold us up, that guide us to make good choices, and that as Jews, every single day, we can see positive things from our kishkas. We can have self-confidence. We can make the possible possible. When we don our tzitzit, which, by the way, looks a little bit like a superhero cape, our Jewish cape, our talit, our fringes, these can help us believe in ourselves and remind us that we might look like angels, we might look like grasshoppers, we might be giants, but we can leap into action to be the better angels that we deserve to be, that we can be, and that our world needs us to be. Shabbat Shalom.